Hello, everybody, and welcome on into College Football Player Props, powered by Unabated with Tom, Viola, and Chris Kay. I'm Tom, he's Chris, and ladies and gentlemen, before we get started with the show today, of course, new intro, but it was our Unabated basketball intro for our show, Set the Screen, and I just want to remind you all, if you haven't checked out the Unabated NBA tools just yet, now's a great time to do so, because let me tell you, Justin, Steven, and John have been putting together an incredible job so far this season. Highly recommend that you check out all the stuff they're doing. You do get access to premium live streams in addition to their projections that they build, just like Chris does with our college football team every single week. Absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend checking that out now. So head to unabated.com/NBA and get started today. But for now, Chris, how was your Halloween, my friend? Did you have a fun one?
Yeah, it was good. But first things first, like Set the Screen. Like, what a great name. I'm over here. I saw it for the first time the other day. And like, you know that meme where the guy's taking off like the headset, like in disgust? I was working. I saw it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how do we really have to spend some time this offseason on a title? But Set the Screen. Great name. Halloween was good. Chill. It's amazing how things change when you're 36 with a kid compared to 25 single and no responsibilities. But I'm much happier in this stage of Halloween than it used to be. Going out downtown and stuff like that on the holidays is just not my vibe. But Tom, I'm hoping you're living it up these days.
I had a good time. Very weird day for me because like I didn't go hard last night. It was a Thursday night. I have stuff to do today. We're having some people over for some fun tonight, but went down, had a few drinks, saw some people in costumes, had a good time. But I had such a vivid dream that I got a parking ticket, like a massive, like $150 parking ticket. And I woke up this morning and I was like, oh crap, I got a parking ticket last night. And then it hit me. I'm like, wait, no, I didn't. I was definitely home and in bed before 1 a.m. and I had bought parking till 1. I was reliving the night, and it wasn't like because I had too much to drink and was like, oh, I'm blacked out. It was just the dream was so vivid. It made me think that I had actually gotten the ticket. And let me tell you, great way to start your day is like realizing that didn't happen. It feels like I'm already up $150 on the day.
Yeah, you panicked and then you immediately were good to go. You're like, wait a second, I'm up 150 right now. So
yeah. But it did make me sad. Not a lot of trick-or-treaters in our neighborhood. It was kind of dark. My old house had like a big Halloween party, and it was great seeing all the kids and stuff. But I'm just really upset because I didn't see a baby in a Mudang costume. Like
I didn't see. You bring that up. I didn't see one either. We saw tons of Minions.
Mm-hmm. Minions are
lots of
big
Minions. That's a fairly simple one. There's some interesting costumes for sure. I live in Atlanta, and so Beat the Freeze is like a big thing for Braves games.
Mm-hmm.
And so a kid with the Beat the Freeze was pretty cool. Easy, but like an effective costume. So it was a fun night, low key. But I'm gonna live vicariously through you, Tom.
I'm 1 day late to the party here, but if you want a great costume idea for next year, like you forgot it's October 30th, and you're like, crap, I don't have anything. Go to the party store. Get just the clown wig, get only the wig, and then wear a suit. You're a business major at clown college.
I saw somebody with just like a dude with just like jeans and a t-shirt, but he had a big panda, like mascot head. And I was like, that's like the perfect costume. It's you wear whatever you want. You just throw on a panda head and it seems like it's a pretty cool vibe. So
yeah,
put that in the back pocket.
I would have worn my sloth onesie, but it's still in Rufus Peabody's closet. From like 2 Halloweens ago.
I think that's for the a different show, Tom. Yeah. Those details probably can't be disclosed here.
All right, before we start losing viewers here, we should get on into it. Clash's Pride is in the chat here. Jim Robinson's in the chat, and Brett Pagney's here all saying, hey, welcome on in, guys. Jim Robinson saying week 10 already. Dude, it's flying by.
It's crazy. Week 10. I mean, I saw a stat the other day. It was like, this is even crazier. The team that plays in the championship and obviously wins or loses, they're halfway through their season. They still have another like 7-8 games to go. But this is a jam-packed season. We get double bye weeks for teams, so it's a little bit more extended. And this is going to make for an interesting last couple months here. November is like completely grind time with all the weekday games. The Thanksgiving week is my favorite week of the year because you get real games Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and the rivalry matchups too. So this is one of the most fun months of the season. And then leading up to bowl season, our first ever 12-team playoffs. So exciting times ahead, but man, I can't believe it. Like doing this every week, doing some other stuff I do every week. Week 10, I'm not upset that we're this far in the season in some regard.
I mean, it really is crazy. And to think about the fact that playoff teams are only halfway through their season right now is just absolutely bonkers. It's also the start of Maction. We finally have Tuesday night Maction, right?
Yeah, Maction. We basically get college football 6 days a week. The games are not the greatest. I mean, if you've been watching Tuesday night Conference USA, you're a little bit of degenerate, which is awesome.
Bro, I've been watching Jets games in prime time.
That's
like anything.
Too, but you got to win yesterday. You got to win yesterday. So.
I watched 0 seconds of it. I saw the Garrett Wilson catch highlight, and that's it. I am not in on this team. This is the part of the season where they win a few games to tank draft stock and make it look like they're going to compete when they don't. But when it comes to Maction, are we going to have projections? Are we having talk me through what people can expect if they are unabated members?
Yeah, so we're going to really just strictly focus on these Friday, Saturday games just because this Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday stuff, we tried it for 1 week in the alpha chat and Discord. It just became a mess. Injuries were so impactful, things that you could have never projected, never see coming. And at that point, really just determined, let's just focus our time, maybe provide a few extra teams on a Friday, Saturday, and give you guys some of the props there, especially with the NBA season. One of the guys in the chat made a great point. Like, let's not worry about midweek football. Let's enjoy it. But like, we have so much NBA now with content and projections and games. Like, let's just do that and come back over on the weekends. The Thanksgiving stuff, we'll have the full week. There's a bunch of games on Friday. There might be one game on Thursday. We'll make sure to have that available, as obviously assuming there's no insane injury type stuff. But yeah, Fridays and Saturdays moving forward, and then bowl season will be much different. Bowl season will include as much as we can for each bowl game. That gets sticky because people sit out randomly and stuff like that. But if we feel confident in the team, we'll release it. It'll be a little bit different than your midweek stuff, even if the bowl game is on a Tuesday type thing. So lots of action left, even with just the Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah, sports videos here. You want to talk about a real OG, a real member? By the way, sports. DM me on the Discord or the Twitterverse. I'll hook you up with some unabated merch if we haven't already. But he says CFB betting is illegal in my state, but I still watch the show for the vibes. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate all of you guys being here. By the way, your quick update. I eventually did pick my NCAA Dynasty team. I am the offensive coordinator for Liberty. And I have not yet made it through a game on the schedule because I scheduled Alabama for week 1. And rather than playing it as just going through the season, I'm treating it more as like Dark Souls, where Alabama's just a boss and I have to beat the boss to move on. So I've just been replaying this game over and over again, trying to win. It's very hard.
So you're gonna be there a while.
My strategy is literally chew clock. And if I get hope that I get a stop on defense and then take a quarter and a half from my first drive. It's
Good
almost
luck.
working.
You got Kaden Salter. You should be able to do a little bit with him. But Alabama's kind of a cheat code with Milroe in that game.
Yeah, it's been annoying. But anyway, here we are, 9 minutes into the show. We're vibing on this Friday. Gambler saying Dark Souls is amazing. Dog, I hate it. It's I've been playing I tried playing the Demon Souls remaster because it's one of the most beautiful games that I've ever seen, and it's not my kind of game. I just can't do it. I can't do the punishing difficulty thing. It's just not for me. I've been playing through Dead Space, the remaster of that though, and that game is an absolute 10 out of 10. Just one of the best games of last generation. I'm glad I'm finally playing through it. But anyway, 9 minutes in, we're vibing on a Friday here.
We're vibing.
And Jim Robinson saying triple option is your best friend in CF25. 2 nickels. Liberty has lost 2 games in a row in conference FCS, so I guess they fit the criteria for being bad enough for that. Yeah, I just picked a 1-star team there. All right, let's finally get into it here, Chris. Let's talk about some games and some players. Where are we going first on the schedule this week?
Let's start Boise State, and we can stay here on the passing yards. We talked a little bit about Maddox Madsen last week being a lower. We like the over here a little bit because obviously the matchup is good with San Diego State. They've given up a ton of yards the last 5 weeks to opponents, but a little bit more volume dependent, which we're probably not going to see from Madsen. But, the baselines are right. They are what they are. And this number 207.5, 208.5 on FanDuel, those are appropriate numbers. Those are not crazy numbers to get to. There is, GT, I'm sure people watched the game last week with UNLV. GT got a little bit banged up. And, you wonder, do they kind of limit him a little bit, right? Do do they maybe throw it a little bit more because of it? We haven't made any adjustments for anything like that, but there is a little bit of that in the background that you think, hey, maybe they do that. So Madsen is an experienced quarterback this late in the season too. I feel confident and fine with betting the over here. A good place to start. And then, with that, there's no receivers that jump out. But if you want to go to the receiving yards here, Jeans, we're going to go back to the well with Jeansy. I was pretty confident in last week. Had 5 targets, and he only got, I think, 11 yards.
Yeah, I was sitting there. I was like, are you kidding me? He's not getting over this number?
Just crazy with 5 targets, and they were all right there. I think he had 1 bad drop, but 3+ targets in 5 of the games this year. This is closer to a blowout than not, but I foresee 3-4 targets. 10.5 is such a low number, like we talked about last week, that those early, like the low teens, is really not that big of a deal. That's 1 catch, right? In a lot of cases. So I like the over on him. And then the tight end, Matt Lauder. I would say if you are a believer in Madsen's over, then Lauder is a great option to go over as well. If you think maybe that Madsen number is a little high, then maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to avoid this Lauder number. He's a little bit, I don't want to say volume dependent, but last week he had 8 targets, looked great. He's probably going to sit around 3 to 5 targets per game. But with the rushing attack that they have, typically you see some of these receptions go for bigger yardage. They're not grinding it out through the air. They're a little bit more extending the field. So Lauder is an over here as well that I think is makes a lot of sense if you like Madsen as well.
Mm-hmm. And it goes back to it being another way that you can attack different props. If you're looking at the same projection here, hey, we're up to 1360 on the subs. We're starting to get close to that 1400 number. Last week I think we were at what, 1200?
1200, yeah, and before that we were 1100. So nice to see it move up.
Mm-hmm. Now, and one more note on GT. How much were anytime touchdown bettors sweating last week because he did not score in the first couple quarters there?
That's why that number is wild. You don't really want to take it that much of a chance on it, but I think we're to the point in the season, as long as he's healthy, he's going to score because they have to keep the Heisman Trophy push, and they also have the playoff push to try to make sure that they get some style points. They have to be the top-ranked G5 team, so they're definitely going to do everything in their power to make Boise State a name that everybody talks about, and he's the way to do it.
We will have to see what happens there, but obviously do not bet that anytime touchdown number, no matter what. Like he's a running back, he can get hurt very easily.
I mean, he did get hurt. How much did everybody gasp when he kind of banged up his? I think it was his left shoulder, he overextended it. Maybe everybody kind of gasped, right? That was like a very scary moment. I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like, anything that you bet, you have so much you have to get that any sort of injury is going to really hurt you there, obviously.
Yeah. Jim Robinson saying anytime TD up to minus 3,000 this week. 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns is minus 150.
3 is minus 1. That's like, why bother, right? That's an insane day.
That's just completely and utterly absurd. All right. Are we heading to the rushing market here on Boise, or are we moving on to another game?
Let's stay here with San Diego State's receivers. Okay. Yeah, so we're in the right spot. So last week we saw Lewis Brown, who's their top receiver, Jude Wolfe, who's their top tight end. Both of these guys sat due to kind of like an internal suspension. I think they missed a meeting or missed a practice or late for practice or something. We're all under the belief that they're returning. They basically came out and said, Sean Lewis basically came out and said, their head coach, like, it's been handled. They're not going to play. So the assumption is they're going to be playing this weekend, or I should say tonight. So that means that Lewis Brown is going to be starting and Nate Bennett moves to the bench. If you were to look at Underdog and Prize Picks, anybody that has to do that like I do, Nate Bennett's under is also an edge there. So something like a 10 or 12% edge on those 2 DFS sites. But then everybody just moves down the line a little bit, right? Polk becomes more of a receiver 2. Napier becomes more of a receiver 3. They have Michael Harrison, a Colorado transfer who was pretty big for Colorado last year. He's in the mix as well. So you have a lot of mouths to feed. And if you want to move over to the passing yards, while we do I believe we like the Danny O'Neal over here just slightly, it's only 176. It's not like we're liking the over on Cam Ward and like the under and all their receivers for Miami, right? This is a pretty low number of 176.5.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit banged up as it is. He got banged up last week in their game. And so with all the mouths to feed, I think the under on all those receivers is a really good bet. I think you could spread it around a little bit and see some success.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the 135 people watching along with us right now. We appreciate y'all being here. And feel free to throw questions, comments in the chat. Like, the lively chat makes for a great show. And also hit that like button for us. If you're not already subscribed, please make sure you do so. But thank you so much for chilling. Chris, do we want to go to the rushing market for San Diego, or are we headed elsewhere?
I think that's it for this game. We can look at let's look at Oklahoma State. We're going to move to Saturday games. A lot of this is like last week we talked about how great of a Friday night slate it was. We had a late night game. We had the big UNLV Boise game. And this week is the complete opposite. It's just a really tough slate of games just from an entertainment standpoint. And then from a betting standpoint, there's a bunch of injuries in some of these different teams, not even worth bringing up. But so moving on to Saturday, Oklahoma State, Alan Bowman came into the year starter, struggled a little bit. They benched him, and then the replacements have gotten hurt. And so he's back. I think he threw for over 300 last week. This is a volume player. 251 is not nothing to scoff at it, but he's going to get probably 40 to 45 attempts, and he has the receiving core to do it. So we like the over here. I think it makes a lot of sense to like Bowman over 251.5.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be getting those options and opportunities, and what's the point spread in this game? I mean, we can go and we can look that up here. Chris insulting USFAU. Colin Sherwin is offended.
Well, that's actually a decent game. It's just the injuries that bug it, right? The Georgia State UConn game is the one where it's like, this is just, I live in Atlanta. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to watch this one.
And it's, they're 4.5 point underdogs. He, like you said, the game script is going to play well for him. Like, if this is a close game, it could become a shootout, or they could be behind.
Yeah, they have not hammered Ollie Gordon this year either. His usage is way lower compared to what we saw last year. If we want to look at the running backs, though, even with limited touches compared to last year, we still like the Ollie Gordon over. We saw a huge difference between Ollie Gordon the first month of the season and the second half of the season. I think he averaged 3.8 yards per carry in the first 4 games, and he's up to 5 yards per carry in his last 4. So that really helps when you have limited usage. We have him at 4.5 yards per carry. You see that right there is a pretty steep over on FanDuel, 19% edge. So, and he's the type of running back that can break a long one, even if we think he was banged up at the beginning of the season. There's speculation that they kind of shifted their blocking scheme or offensive style of rushing at that mid-season point. But all I do know is that he's significantly better, 1.2 yards carry better in the last 4 games.
Yeah. Now a little bit tricky here though, because so basically we're looking at the quarterback over passing yards and the running back over rush yards.
Yeah, it is funny to think about. They're going to pass a ton. It's Ollie Gordon. Look, what do we have him projected for in terms of attempts?
Yes. Sorry, I had to put those back up there. I know Tyler Jackson's going to be upset with me. There we go.
17.3. Last year Ollie Gordon maybe averaged 24 to 25 carries. If that was last year's Ollie Gordon, we probably wouldn't see an over on Bowman because you'd see maybe limited touches there or limited attempts. This is one of those ones that's like correlation in basketball, right? I see a lot of people in Discord talking about that type of thing with all the different props out. I wouldn't go heavy on both of these. I'd probably pick the one that you like the most and then bet it, and then maybe throw a little bit on the other one. Both can happen. 100% both can happen. Oklahoma State doesn't play defense. Arizona State has a good offense. They have their quarterback back, so we'll see an offense that's not going to sputter nonstop. So this could be a shootout, and both could hit. But it probably makes the most sense to pick your favorite of the two, and then bet accordingly.
Yeah. Geez. Meanwhile, look at FanDuel there. Caesars has 55.5. If that number is around, I'm not sure exactly what's if our Caesars feed is back yet or not. But 55.5. But look at that FanDuel number, 63.5. It is skyrocketed on us.
Yeah, that's crazy. He's hit this number 3 out of 4 times amidst that stretch. That's really positive. It's crazy to think that Ollie Gordon's number is sitting in the 60s or 50s on some books in week 10. He was projected to run for like 14 or 1,500 yards probably, and he's itching for 60 a game. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. People are saying that Caesar's number is live, so we love to see that there. And hopefully that means that our Caesar's feed is just about back. I know that we've been pretty close to getting that up and running there. Where do you want to head to next year, Chris?
So let's take a quick look. FanDuel's got a nice line on Brennan Presley receptions. We don't typically see receptions pop up, but not only is this an intriguing line, it's also plus money. You hesitate to put a 54% edge on here. I certainly would dig even deeper, do whatever I had to see what that is. But the guy is a target monster. He's got a great rapport with Alan Bowman. I think he had 14 targets last week. 2 weeks prior to that, he had 17 targets. This guy is like your classic 3-yard slant, quick screen type of guy. And we have the added benefit of Dazon Stribling playing only half the game last week. He's been kind of banged up with, I think, a lower body injury, an ankle maybe. And so if he's limited or if he's out, we're going to see heavy usage of Brennan Presley. So this is one that, especially at plus 116 on FanDuel, over 5.5. Great.
It just got hit. It is now down to plus 102.
Still great. I mean, 5.5 is crazy. He probably averages 8 or 9 targets a game. And he could see upwards of 17 or 18. So I love that bet personally. I was hoping, I don't think it's on Underdog. If it were to pop up on Underdog, that's something that probably the first one I'm targeting when those subs are released, those projections released.
It's just saying super low limits on that line. Yeah, they quickly moved that number, and I'm sure it'll come down now that this show is going on because we got, again, 160 people watching right now. We are moving lines here, which is awesome to see. Well, not awesome, but it's cool.
It's good and bad, right? It's fun. Let's go to Illinois. That's another one with a receiver that's injured. We can start the passing game.
Illinois.
We like the under on Luke Altmaier. He's been really pretty decent the last couple of weeks, but he could be down his best receiver, Pat Bryant. One of his best receivers, Pat Bryant. He's kind of the deep ball threat. And he's got a concussion, so truly we'll know in warm-ups, basically. So I do like the under, and it's even better if Bryant is out. Now, if you were to move to the receiving yards, this is one I'd put in your back pocket. This game's at noon. When the Big Ten releases their reports of, injury report of who's in, who's out. So Zachary Franklin we like it currently as an under, right? But if Pat Bryant were to be out, then we would have to like the over. I would imagine that over becomes a really enticing option for us because he's the receiver one, more possession than he is downfield, like I said with Bryant. So keep this one in the back of your mind for 10, 11 a.m. If you see Bryant's out, then I think Franklin over makes a ton of sense. If Bryant's in, then I think if you already have a lean on this one and you like the Franklin under, then this number stays true. We have assumed Bryant in and playing. So concussion is one of those things where you just wait till essentially right before game time. You'll know for sure. It's not like an angle where you have to see if it's warming up and feels good. Like he's either playing or he's not, right? Your head's not going to feel better after running around a little bit.
Yeah. Ugh, concussions.
One positive to the injury is that if Bryant's injured, we like the rushing yard number for Josh McCray even better. I would say there's a possibility that they run it even more if they're down one of their best receivers. And we like the over as it is with Josh McCray. Mm-hmm. This might be an overreaction from books for Aiden Lawfrey. He's kind of their running back too, but that game against Oregon, they got blown out and McCray basically didn't touch the field in the second half. But McCray's the starter. He had, I think it was 16 and 17 carries the 2 weeks prior. I would feel confident that 12 is a good number for him, and 41.5 yards. Minnesota's not been a good defense. I don't see how McCray, if he gets those 12, 13 carries, I don't see how he doesn't hit that over. And maybe we see a push towards more rushing if Bryant's out. So some extra incentive to keep an eye on that Bryant injury on Saturday morning.
Might be something that, good luck finding alt lines on college running backs. But if you can, Might be worth picking something up now, not for a full unit, but taking a flyer on something and seeing if maybe we get a really fortunate swing.
Yeah, you never know. Some of these times, one injury could really impact the style of the offense. Pat Bryant's probably not that type of receiver, but I think the matchup lends towards a positive run game for Illinois rather than pass game, especially if they're missing a top guy. So they don't really have a ton of options besides Franklin. There's some random type, deep ball types, tight ends fine type of thing. So we could see maybe McCray have a huge day. He was a guy that was supposed to be the starter last year, and Caden Fegan came in and took the job from him pretty easily. So Fegan's out now. He gets another chance. And, 41.5 is really nice, and we'll see. Who knows what those alt lines are and what they might be paying it out at. So
Brett pointing out that, Chris, you really break these games down, and you really do. And I love that it's such a great combination of qualitative and quantitative, because it's saying, like, here are the qualitative reasons why we're looking at this stuff, but here's how it's coming out in our projections, and here's how it all actually breaks down on the field. Chad Martin saying FanDuel does have alts. Check it out. I'm not fully saying go take out a second mortgage for it, but could be a good chance to pick up a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some bets that make sense, but they're also would be fun to follow. I mean, you're playing an edge that you think could happen, and you're obviously the long shot odds for a reason. When you start to try to take advantage of injuries and what might happen, that's probably the best way to get some of those long shot odds, maybe make them a little bit less. So yeah, why not? I mean, certainly wouldn't go crazy on it, but every now and then, I'll see an alt line that I think is fun and throw it out there in the Discord, because there is a world where that happens.
Yeah. All right. What's up next for us here?
The first time in the show's history, we're going to look at Army, and we're going to stay here on the rushing yards. So usually Army is insanely unpredictable. But this year they really focus on two guys, their quarterback, Bryson Daly, and Kane Udo, one of their running backs. We like the over on Udo. He kind of started slow. He was used, but not super effective. Maybe that was partially because of some of the blowouts. He's been great. I mean, even he had a 6-carry game once against, I think it was Tulsa, where they blew him out, and he still ran for like $134. So 97 plus rushing yards in 4 straight games. He's going to get the usage. This is not the Air Force of old that would milk clock, would be a tough defense to go up against. This Air Force team is really pretty bad. Army is a top 25 team, and I think it's fairly legitimate. I think they're fun, and they're passing it just enough to be exciting and to keep things keep teams on their toes. So I like the over here. It's not one of my favorite plays, but I think it's a legitimate 8-9% edge, and I think if you have it available, and especially if you're feeling it, I think that's an over you should take a look at.
Another important factor to keep in mind in the handicapping of this Army game. Have you seen the helmets that Army is going to be playing?
Dude, Army and Navy, they kill the helmet game. I've never once seen a uniform or helmet from them and been like, yeah, they totally messed up. Every single time. It's incredible.
Yeah. And to give people an idea, this is the helmet Army is playing in this week. This thing's sick.
It's so good. I mean, only they could get away with like skull, cross, and bones on a helmet, and black on black. I mean, come on, it's no brainer.
Seriously, I hope that they upload this helmet. I feel like they will, because of how big the game is. Like, this has to be an NCAA. And
I can see that happening. They've been doing that pretty well. They've been updating and keeping things in pretty well. But even more reason to watch the game. Udo and the helmet.
Yeah. The Army Navy game, the Navy helmets that they had a couple years ago, where they were like the different position groups were different ships.
Yeah.
Those are still my favorite.
Maybe
ever.
For lack of better words, they blow it out of the water every time. Navy and Army. So Air Force doesn't bring the same level of they're not as cool with their uniforms, but they're paying for it. And the Air Force, by the way, thank you for your service, but the worst coach and injury news person there ever is. Like, that's the one guy you could never trust. So I hope Army takes it to him on the backs of Kane Udo for sure.
A couple questions from the chat here that I want to address before we move on. Metz was asking, Freddie Brock rush yards too low. Any thoughts there? And then Voodoo Ranger is asking about Jay Polk's 60 plus receiving yards at plus 170. do we have projections out for either of those guys?
We have Polk, and we like the under, so I wouldn't. The Jay Sean Polk from San Diego State, right? That's one I wouldn't want to touch. Freddie Brock, we feel pretty decent about what we have on Georgia State, relatively speaking, and we have them around 61.5 yards, so that's not going to be an edge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it now; it's not an edge period. So I think the Brock number is pretty fair. That's not one that I would target as like this is a bad line type of thing. Jay Sean Pogue, we like the under. There's we were talking about earlier. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. Danny O'Neal, slightly banged up, but also like that line's 175 or 176. Like I could see 30 yards to 5 or 6 different guys. It would not surprise me at all. And they're getting the best receiver back, Lewis Brown, who commands a bunch of targets.
Yeah. All right. Where do we want to head to next year, Chris? Are we sticking with Army?
Let's do. Yeah, we're not doing any more Army. We don't get too crazy. Let's look at yards. So we actually kind of like the under, but there's zero way to predict that. Yeah. They average like 15 yards per attempt. Not touching it, not bothering with it. Let's look at Florida. So they had some pretty big news come out. Trey Wilson out for the game, I think even this season. And it's kind of led us to see a couple of receivers for them potentially get more usage. But the more that Ben and I and the team looked at it, Taveri Dike and Elijah Badger, they have not seen a ton of uptick in usage. We've seen Wilson out. He's missed 3 games. In those games, DK had, I think, 14 targets, and Badger had 13 targets. These show as 35-ish% edges. I wouldn't treat them that way because there is a little bit of the unknown of maybe one pops off type of thing. Maybe there's been something different in the last couple of weeks because I think Wilson missed weeks 4, 5, and 6 type of thing. But, I mean, by the letter of the law, we like the under, and I think it makes sense. They're going up against Georgia, who's a great defense, not their typical, can't be stopped Georgia defense. But, I mean, look at what Texas did against Georgia, and they have better receivers, better quarterback, and they struggled against Georgia. So I like the under on both these guys. This is one of those ones I definitely would lean towards maybe splitting a unit and putting a one on each, splitting half and, doing half and half, or picking one that you like of the two and running with it. But the under makes complete sense to me. I think Books got a little bit aggressive with the Wilson news that he was out. And so I wonder how much did Badger get moved up? If you want to click, maybe he might have had a number released.
35? Yeah.
So they bumped him 8 yards there. I think somewhere else had him too. And what about FanDuel? FanDuel is a little bit even more aggressive. Yeah. Moved him 12 yards. So you would think off the cuff, these guys really benefit, but we haven't seen it yet. And for that reason, we like the under. We also, if you want to go to passing yards, we like the under on DJ Lagway as well.
DJ Lagway, not to be confused with DJ Uagalele.
I never got those two confused, but I could see why people would get started. It's not too far away. This guy's incredible, true freshman. The super lazy comp is Anthony Richardson, which I guess maybe helps prove the point that under is the play here.
Sounds familiar. God, what would he have been like if we put him in a Florida offense?
I know, right? The thing with Lagway is he's going to be incredible wherever he ends up because he could transfer this offseason quite easily. But this is not I would never want to start a true freshman quarterback against Georgia. I get he's extrem's athletic. He's a super talented thrower. He makes throws every now and then. He flashes throws that you're like, wow, this guy's it. I think he was a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the class. Big, looks like he's 30 type body frame. But I just don't want to start a quarterback against Georgia. I'm not betting an over against Georgia with a true freshman quarterback. And we did not mess with the numbers at all to make this be the case. But we liked the under from the start. So they're going to be down potentially Montreal Johnson, their running back, down Trey Wilson. So you're going to be down a couple weapons on offense. Who's to say they don't really move the ball, period. So I think the Lagway number makes a ton of sense on the under. And as we've seen already, some people already moving it.
Yeah. And by the way, shout out to the 200 people watching us right now. We absolutely appreciate it. Love you all. Also, I figured it out. Lagwe evolves into Uagalele. It's a Pokemon. There we go.
There we go. Okay. I gotcha. A little progression there. Hopefully not in terms of football talent, because it'd be great to see Lagway be great throughout his career. But the under here, not a lot to it. I mean, he hasn't really shown a ton to make you think like, yeah, he's gonna be fine. He had one big game a couple weeks back, maybe, but besides that, he kind of split some time with Graham Mertz, and now Mertz is out for the season. So
yeah. All right, where do we want to head to next? While we're going there, Jim Robinson pointing out nice correlated parlay there, under passing and 2x under receiving plus 325 at FanDuel.
Nice. That's, I mean, whenever you can do it, right? When you can correlate and get some good odds on it, that's awesome. I mean, last week, right, Tom, you did the old Kentucky parlay, right? What exactly? What's that again? There's Dane Key over, Brown under, and then
that was it. I just had I just had the 2-leg Dane Key over, Brown under, and it did hit and helped save my bacon because I was not having a great weekend last weekend.
Well, with what a transition. Let's go to Kentucky. I don't think there's a passing number because Vandegrift got benched. They took it down. Vandegrift got benched at halftime. It looked awful, and because of that like once he got taken out for Gavin Wimsatt, you could have like nothing was going to happen in the passing game. So it was great to see Dane Key get that number early. And Varian Brown never had a chance. Let's look at the receiving yards, if you don't mind. We should see again lower on Varian Brown. The thing here is we probably would have liked this number with Vandegrift at quarterback, and now we kind of are like 50-50 on who the quarterback is. And if it's Gavin Wimsatt, he is not like a backup at Sam Houston State. He's the former Rutgers quarterback last year, but he wasn't good. Like Rucker. Yeah, my bad. But he wasn't good. Like he was a guy that threw for $150, $140. And Varian Brown is as talented as he is. He cannot figure out a way to be effective in this offense. So I think the under here is really appealing. It's a shame Dane Key at his 54.5 number is typically fun, but there's no way I'm touching it with quarterback indecision and what could possibly be with Vandegrift not playing potentially.
All right. Do we have anyone else in the run game that we're interested in this Kentucky Derby, or are we going to be heading onwards?
Let's go to USC. USC is one of the most frustrating teams to do. They continue to use a bunch of different receivers. So we like the Miller, like just generally speaking, we're pretty on with Miller Moss's passing number, right? The line is around 270-ish. We have him 274. So you're thinking, okay, like we have the USC passing game pretty pegged correctly, right? Go to the receiving yards. It's like you get some overs, you get some unders, and it just becomes a mess. The problem here is that, Mekhi Lemon has seen an uptick in usage in 3 weeks, but it's a super volatile situation. He could fall from grace and all of a sudden he's getting 2-3 targets. He could go back to the normal the last couple of weeks. So this one, play with caution for sure. We like the over on Jacoby Lane. That one I feel like is a good one. That one I like. It's funny. That's probably the one that I like the most of all of them, even though it's just a 11% edge. Because I think his volatility is the lowest of all of them. I think his usage is true across the board. So I do like the over there the most. But Branch and Lemon are going to be the two guys that are volatile. That you could see 2 targets, you could see 9 targets. So we like him conversely. We like Branch on the over and Lemon on the under. But I'd say bet with caution. I'd say look at these numbers are going to move in the next 20 minutes. I'd look into it a little bit and see what you think. If you have a lean on one of them, then go with the Lemon under. If you like Branch over, go with it. So
you say these numbers aren't going to move in 20 minutes, but we've been moving numbers.
Well, maybe, hopefully the caution here, right? That's why we were talking about it today and not pushing it without any context on Discord or in the channels, right? Because blindly betting USC receivers is dangerous because of it's just because of how they use them. It's Kyle Ford will not see a target, or he'll run 5 snaps 1 week, and then the next week he gets 6 targets. It's crazy. So keep that in mind as you're betting USC this weekend.
Mm-hmm. All right. What is next on the agenda? Do we want to go to USC rushing yards, or are we investigating more passing yards?
We could look at USC rushing yards real quick. There's a slight under on that. I don't think it's one that you necessarily want to bet, but this is one of those ones. I think the number is true, but it's really up to you. If you personally follow USC a bunch and you agree with it, then I'd say roll with it. Otherwise, I'd avoid. Instead, who's next? Let's see. Let's go to Duke. Usually we talk about Duke run game. I want to say the line got moved to where it's not an edge. Let's go to the passing game. Let's go to passing yards. This is another situation where injury to a receiver is kind of creating some question marks. So Jordan Moore is playing, but he's been banged up in the direct benefit. Maybe go to receiving yards first. I apologize. And who's benefiting the most is Eli Pinkel. So he got double-digit targets last game, but once when Brown was healthy and full strength, Brown was out targeting him every single game, basically. So if we hear that Brown is full strength, then I think this under on Pinkel is really interesting. It's probably 50-50. I think he's going to play, but we probably won't know the extent of his snaps and counts and stuff like that. So we do like a slight under. I think it does make sense against Miami. I do think they're going to have to pass it a good bit, but Miami's giving up a ton of yards through the air. But if Jordan Moore is playing, then we're in a better spot. If you want to go to passing yards, I think that game script does really help Malik Murphy. I usually hate advising anything over on Malik Murphy, but he's hit the over a couple of times. 194.5 is not the most intimidating number, and it's definitely a game script helps. And the baselines are true. And so, I think if you have a lean on it, go for it. I think 15% edge definitely is true to what we're seeing here. So I think Malik Murphy over against Miami makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Miami, the team that is most unabashedly being pushed into the playoff by the ACC Rapids.
Just the best.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I think that's got 15 minutes left. I think that's all the teams I got rocking and rolling. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, wow. I'm surprised we made it through it. I was kind of I knew that we took a little bit getting going there. I was like, oh, are we going to make it through all the teams? But hey, job well done by us. So throw in your questions. We've got a couple more minutes here before, of course, we head off the air, but Chris gets to say goodbye and I head on to do the NFL Week 9 show with Derek Carty. And then right after that, I get to say goodbye. And Justin, John, and Steven are going to be on stream for NBA projection members in the Unabated channel doing their thing for the slate today on Friday. We got Set the Screen coming up after the Blitz. Yeah, Chris, we really do need a name for this show. We
do, yeah. So, I mean, come on, the Blitz and Set the Screen, we really messed up. Yeah. I do have one more for tonight that I think is if you want to go to passing yards, and I'll give you the numbers for Zach Gibson. He's the Georgia State quarterback. So this is not available everywhere, but maybe it pops up. Maybe it pops up before game time tonight, 7 p.m. We have him at 20.3 completions and 225 yards, 225.4 yards. He's available on Prize Picks, so we might see him pop up elsewhere. But if you want to say, do you have Prize Picks on the very right?
I will in a second. Bam.
Yeah, so we do see a nice overedge. He's hit this number. I think he's thrown for 190 in back-to-back games. He's a Georgia Tech transfer. Connecticut is a defense that you can, I don't want to say beat up a lot, but you can throw on Connecticut for 190 yards. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of indecision, question marks on one receiver for them, but not it's not like a Pat Bryant situation, which takes your quarterback's potential. So Zach Gibson, if you want some juice tonight, I think that one is singularly for Georgia State is a way to attack it. Maybe it opens up on some different books here before now and 7 p.m. for us.
Nice. All right. MGM has him at 186.5. Chad Martin says Natish wants to know about Ohio State versus Penn State. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that's going to be released with the projections.
That's going to be released with projections. We have a good bit of edges on that one. rushing and receiving. And I'm sure there will be some reception props that pop up probably Saturday morning on FanDuel, which will be fun. Big reception guy here, as we've talked about in the past. And so I always look in Saturday morning to see what pops up. But that'll be in the release here today. And 5, maybe 6, 7 edges coming from that one. There's a lot of good, talented players. You get some overs, get some unders, so it'll be good.
Yep. Jim Robinson, 2 guys covering college football bets. It's the cover 2. Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh.
That did not take long at all.
I like that.
Yeah, just put it in immediately. I don't need to hear anything else.
I think we might have a name next week.
Yeah, and send that guy a t-shirt.
Kim, I think I've sent you a t-shirt before. If I haven't, congratulations. You just got
one. What job well done. Look at that. Yeah. I mean, God, how did we not think about that?
Yeah, that took absolutely no time. Well done. Justin, you heard him. Cover 2. We're going to have graphics next week for it. I think that's the show name.
Now we're getting people some more work in the background, but we love it.
Yep. I just do it for the merch, guys. I'm no hero. Shout out to Justin Long, our amazing social media guy / the genius behind the face swap graphics that we get on the thumbnails for all this. He has been absolutely busting his butt lately for us, and yeah, absolute shout out to Justin. He's the GOAT. Nitish says Bryson Daly passing yards. The number is so low. Let's talk about it.
So, like I said earlier, we like the under, but our stuff is tough on these guys that are 15 yards per attempt or like with GT 10 yards per carry, right? It's just kind of hard to say, yeah, this guy's going to continue to score at 15% clip or run for 10 yards per carry. It is hard to do that. The sample size, that's probably one of the harder things with college football is the sample size is fairly small, right? In the NBA, you get 82 games, right? You know what you're dealing with at 40 games in. We get 12, right? So hard to say. I personally would not touch it. If I were to bet it, I would actually bet the under. I don't, 100.5 is a low number. He's hit that, I think, 4 straight. He missed it 3 times, but they could run for 400 yards and this game could be over by the third quarter. And he's got 2 attempts. It would not surprise me at all. So play at your own risk. If I were to do it, I would do the under, and otherwise I would avoid.
It's so hard for the model to quantify out guys that the model is not built for. Like the model is built for your standard quarterbacks. When you have these fringe cases like this, it gets very difficult to simulate them out accurately.
Yeah. Let's take I've been scrolling around trying to find guys that I think are interesting that might be able to help with here. Let's look at Memphis and Seth Hennigan. I'm going to tell you, they play a nice game against UTSA, not included, but we have 24.3 completions, 310 yards. It's a pretty big number. UTSA is pretty bad in terms of like pass defense and what they're giving up. Hennigan came into the season, was like a really big name. I mean, Memphis was considered one of the top dogs for this G5 top playoff spot. So he's got a great receiver group. Mario Anderson's great in the passing game. So he's got options to throw to. If you're looking for an over on Saturday noon, I think Seth Hennigan passing yard over 251 is pretty low. 270-ish would probably have been one that I would have thought it would have opened at, but I think, this is a really nice over if you're looking for another one there.
Yeah, I have a strong feeling that this number is not going to be there in just a little bit.
UTSA is just, if I remember correctly, they're really, really awful against the pass. One of the worst. They're 125th in the country. Not only are they giving up 272 a game through the year, they have 8.7 yards per attempt, which is 125th, 124th. So in both areas, right? If you just want to talk about pure volume, what they're giving up, it's bad. If you want to talk about yards per attempt, it's bad. Hennigan will get a little bit of both. He's not your Allen Bowman 40, 45 attempt guy. He's closer probably to that, like 30 to 35, but he's got great receivers like Bowman does, and great implied total, I think, is probably in the mid 30s. This one has the makings of a big scoring attack for Memphis.
All right. Well, Chris, I think we're getting about to it. I mean, do you have anyone else, any final thoughts that you want to share, or are we all set to head out? I've got to go track some bets that I made during the show.
I think
watching the Cover 2 show. Justin's on it already. I think we found our name.
I think we wrap up the first edition of Cover 2. I would just reiterate, just keep in mind, 5% edges and over is what we typically recommend. If you see you're going to see probably some big edges on some of these like receiving yards on running backs that are like 11.5 yards. There's one for a player that's 0.5 receiving yards. I mean, you're talking extreme volatility. So just have caution when you bet those. Some of them are great, but like a guy that will never catch a pass will eventually catch a pass. And so just be wary of that as you bet those running back numbers like that, tight end numbers.
You're playing high variance there.
Yeah. So you could potentially see 35% edge on something like that, but just have caution and be mindful of those low receiving yards on running backs and tight ends. So
yep. Met's got a final question for Nitish saying it's like betting Bronny under 1.5 points. I was going to say the same thing because I laid the wood on his assist under the other night. I got burned, but that's exactly what it's like. Like you're playing very high variance market. So if you see a minus 160 or something like that, maybe don't play it, or at least be aware of what you are playing and what you are putting up there. Holstein, Matt says Holstein's got to his number for us before. Does he get into a shootout with SMU? So that'll be our final question here before we sign off.
They're tough because Holstein and Jennings, the SMU quarterback, are both hurt, playing through injury. I would say we kind of like the under on both of them. If I'm going to be quite honest, I think the Kevin Jennings under is better because there's a little bit of like he hasn't really played the absolute best. I think he turned it over 5 times last week. This is a huge game. This is like essentially winner puts himself in the driver's seat for top 2 in the ACC.
Yeah,
and so I think if you're going to attack this game, you probably want to attack the unders because of how banged up both these guys are. And I think Jennings has potential to be pulled if he doesn't play well early. Maybe that injury affects him. He gets pulled because of it. Preston Stone is a more than capable quarterback that they've talked about and started in the past. So I wouldn't attack any overs. I would look at unders or I would avoid.
And very funny story with Pitt and the ACC this year because they don't have divisions. It is entirely possible that we get an 8-0 Clemson team, an 8-0 Miami team, and an 8-0 Pitt team, or undefeated all the way around through conference play, because they don't play each other. At which point they would have to go to the tiebreaker of win strength of common opponents, or opponents' win strength.
I've seen crazier. There was that like D2 or FCS team or something like that. They did like a coin flip to see who won the conference.
Yep.
I was hoping you were going to say something like that, but yeah, that is that's one of those things they got to figure out, and that's because they play 8 or 9 conference games. Because of that, there's too many teams in conference. Hopefully, they get that fixed. We all know Miami is going to make it in that scenario. There's no way they're not making it in that scenario. But that would be funny. That would be. It's possible. Pitt looks good.
Yeah. Also, absolute bullshit that the Army-Navy game doesn't count towards the playoff, because how fun would that be if it was Army-Navy to determine who goes to the playoff?
Well, if they were going to be in that situation, they would probably be playing each other in their conference championship game too. So it's like wild. I think they probably didn't consider it too much because they're like, they'll never they'll never make it there. Hey, we don't need to worry about it, right? That'll never happen. And then all of a sudden it's like very possible. I don't think Navy's going to make it. I think Navy's chances are shot, but Army certainly doesn't. How cool would it be for Navy to try to play spoiler for it? So,
yeah. Well, we will have to see. But for now, I think that is going to wrap us up in just 5 minutes here. Derek Hardy and I are going to be headed live for the Blitz to talk some NFL Week 9 player props, because it's Week 10 here in college football. And that doesn't ever get confusing for someone who has to do back-to-back shows on that. But we're going to be right back here. So feel free to stick around on the channel. We're going to be going live in just a couple more minutes. And thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in, who has watched along, who has thrown their comments in the chat. Nitish, Chad, Jim, Metz, Clash, all of you guys, Voodoo Ranger, Colin, of course. Thank you guys all for being here with us. Colin kind of has to be. Well, he doesn't have to be, but hey, we appreciate him helping us out. 2 Nickels, what's up? Thanks for the insights, gentlemen. See you on the Blitz, Thomas. All right. That's going to do it for us here on Cover 2. We'll be right back with the Blitz after just a couple short minutes here. But for Chris, I'm Tom saying good luck, everybody. And let's cash some tickets. Let's have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.